So Nick, we get asked quite regularly from customers, but also people using Dynamics 365 in general about their consumption in data capacity and the size of their database. Is there anything that you would advise customers or users in general who are using Dynamics 365 to really reduce that data capacity across the three spectrums of the database capacity model?
Yeah, so data within Dynamics and within the Dataverse actually comes under three kind of umbrella terms. You've got your data, your files, and your logs. So the first thing that you really want to do, because capacity gets lumped in when you get your email saying you're over capacity, it's basically one of those things. And so the first thing to do is to go to the admin center, that's admin.powerplatform.com, log in, and have a look at your capacity. And you can actually see the breakdown of what's going over. Data really takes care of, kind of does what it says on the tin. It's your records within the system. That's the most expensive storage. Then you've got files, which are attachments. So if you think about emails in the system, that has attachments. And Microsoft actually made a change a few years ago now where they moved emails to be stored in files, and it actually uses blob storage in the background. And that was to try and cut down that data kind of levels. And then logs is audit logs and tracing and things like that. So if you are high on your log storage, which is, I think, the cheapest storage cost, have a look at your audit policy, your retention policy on audit logs. It shouldn't really be on forever. You want to tone it down a little bit. It shouldn't be hanging around for that long. And that's a real easy win. Next up is really the data, and that's where the crux of it is. And you can actually drill into those graphs, and you can see the exact tables that are occupying your storage. A real common one is activities. So, and specifically the activity pointer base. And what that is a pointer to all of the different activity types. So that may be emails, but it could be tasks, appointments, could be closes of opportunities, closes of cases. And they're the ones that people don't really realize are going on. Every time you close an opportunity, it creates an activity. If you reopen that opportunity and close it again, it creates another activity. So that can get out of hand quite quickly and has very little value on a day-to-day basis. The fact that the opportunity is there is great. So really analyzing and looking at where the data is being consumed is the first step, really, is analysis. Then you need to action on it. So you need to say, okay, that table is big. Let's take activity pointer base as an example. It's big. Why is it big? Okay, I might need to use Power BI to have a look at it. I might be able to get away with advanced find, but if it's that big, then you're probably going to need to be in Power BI. And really come up with a retention policy for that data. And then you can make use of things like the bulk deletion service. So Dynamics has had for a very long time a bulk deletion service. It allows you to basically run a filter on a periodic basis. So let's say weekly, monthly, and anything that gets returned by it will be deleted out of the system. And that's just a good way of shrinking it. But ultimately, what you do need to remember is that you're in a system which is going to grow. It's always going to grow. And so you either have to treat the problem by chopping data off and losing it, or you have to treat the problem by buying more storage. There's really no magic bullet. There is another solution, not just deletion of data, but Microsoft introduced it, I think it was about a year ago, and it's the long-term retention. And it works in a similar way. You can set up filters, and then records returned by the filter, instead of being deleted, get put in long-term retention. And that basically compresses them down so they don't take up as much storage in the Dataverse. The flip side of it is that although it's still in the Dataverse, when you search, it's not there anymore. So it's a bit like if you think in the olden days when you archived off data, you would take your files, you would put them in a cardboard box, and you'd put them in the archive room. Or you'd take them off site and put them in an archive location, and you would never look at them again until you actually needed them. You wouldn't report on them. They're just there. That's a similar thing. So that's another option for people that are struggling with their database size.
Just on the topic of data, do you have any recommendations for what should and shouldn't be stored in the Dataverse?
That's a really good question. So rewind the clock 5-6 years, everyone was piling everything into their CRM system. And the Power Platform and the Dataverse is fantastic. It's a relational database, super easy to get data in, super easy to get data out. The downside is it's quite expensive. It's quite an expensive place to put your data. So Microsoft have kind of realized that it was starting to be used a bit like a data warehouse, and that's not its intended purpose. And so they introduced functionality such as virtual entities, which allow you to point at another location, like a SQL database, and then show that data within the system without it actually being in the system. There are other mechanisms that you can use to surface data. So whilst the CRM system, you want to be a 360-degree view of your customer, and not all of that data might be in Dynamics, that doesn't mean you can't show it in Dynamics. So if you have data which is really kind of transactional or referential data that needs to empower the users, maybe it's a customer service representative, maybe it's a salesperson, really think strongly about, does the data need to physically be in the system? And if it doesn't need to physically be in the system, where is it now? And can I get at it from where it is now? Can I embed a Canvas app that points to it? Can I embed a Power BI report that will point to it and just surface that data rather than moving it around? You will reduce complexity, which reduces your burden kind of going forward on updates when the waves come up, making sure that they regression tested and everything. But it will also reduce your data size. So is a really, really good point. Things like transactional data, unless they're triggering workflows and things like that, you may find that you can get away with putting it in a SQL database and just surfacing it to your users.
So where does Fabric come into all of this?
So Fabric is kind of I'll call it a sidestep from the world of Synapse. And it can actually complement it. And it's made up of, you can create lake houses and data flows. And the idea being that you can even ship data from the Power Platform out to Fabric natively. And it gives you a central location where you can cleanse your data, so you can transform it. So you may go through the medallion process of having bronze data, which is kind of raw and unclean, to silver data, to gold data, which is presentable to the business. And then you can actually publish that gold data so it's available as a data source to the rest of the business, so that if someone in customer service wants to do a report based on stats and figures, and let's say that data for the report comes from your ticketing system and your dynamic system, and you want to merge it together, all of that heavy lifting is done in Fabric, and then Power BI can look at it. The nice thing is that Fabric also gives you a SQL endpoint. So that means it acts like a virtual SQL server. So those virtual tables that Microsoft have introduced can actually point at Fabric tables. So if you've done some heavy lifting in Fabric and you've combined 2 or 3 or more data sources, you've got a lovely clean data set, you can just bring that into Dynamics without having to actually move the data, and you can surface it. And then those customer service operatives or the salespeople, they can see it, and their data has been hydrated and enhanced by that other data.
What recommendations would you give to an organization who are considering or in the process of migrating to Microsoft Dynamics 365? What recommendations would you give when it comes to that data migration process?
Really take stock of your data and be harsh on it. So you need to look at your full data estate. One of the most common reasons that we see customers move from an old system into Dynamics is because they can't trust the old system because the data is rubbish. Us moving the data from the old system to the new system isn't going to make the data less rubbish. The only thing that will do that is cleaning the data as we go. So we use ETL, extract from the old system, transform, load into the new system. And really that transformation is where we do all of that cleanup. But that cleanup can start beforehand. So really think seriously about what you want to bring with you. What do you want to leave behind? I always say to customers, it's like moving house. You want to have a bit of a clear out. Do we really need this anymore? No, we don't. You want to have a bit of a tidy up. Make sure everything, when you unpack it in the new house, goes into the right place. If you have a kitchen drawer with a load of rubbish in it, there's no point in just picking up that kitchen drawer and dumping it into a new kitchen drawer. It's not going to be tidy. It's not going to be any better. So it's about policy, and you have to involve the whole company. Anyone who's got a stake in the data that's going into the system needs a say. But you do have to be quite firm, because the initial response is always, I just need everything because I might need it one day. If it's I might need it one day, okay, well, can we get away with putting some of it somewhere else? Can we put it in a database that we archive off? And then if that day ever comes, we can restore it and we can get to it. But let's not put the effort in now, just in case. Let's make sure that we can do the effort later, but only if we need to, not just because it might be a factor. Data migration is a very, very big part of a project. It's a real time sink. It's not a complicated process. It's just a laborious process. It just takes a long time working out what's where, working out what should come across, how should it be translated, how should it be mapped, how do you load it, validating everything's there. So you want to keep it as tight as you possibly can to try and keep that budget as small as possible.